Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the Kathleen Wells Show. I'm your host, Kathleen Wells. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? I begin where I always began, talking about politics and how it's been an utter disappointment for Black America. I've talked about this. Let's see, I've been doing this podcast for, a couple of weeks, I guess. I don't know. A few shows. I have a few shows. I used to be on KCAA for 4 years. Now I'm here. This is the new and improved Kathleen Wells Show, and I'm delighted to have as my guest today. Remember, I think I talked about this a few weeks ago, or I've talked about it on every show. When I decided last year during the political campaign to vote for Trump, I went on YouTube looking for other Black Trump supporters. And to my surprise, I found more than I thought I would find. In fact, there were a lot of folks, a lot of Black folks, putting up YouTube videos on their channels supporting Trump. We never heard that in the mainstream media. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact why Hillary lost, actually. Black folks either voted for Trump, I think he got 13% of the Black male vote, or they didn't show up. But yet the mainstream media never discussed this, never examined this issue. Anyway, while I was looking for Black Trump supporters, I ran across a speech that was powerful and dynamic and extraordinary. It was a speech by R.W. Bray, a Black Republican in Texas. It was at a Trump rally. I mean, this speech was so powerful. I'm going to link it in the YouTube down at the bottom on YouTube, so you can hear the speech. I've posted it on my Facebook page. Also, I can recommend that you guys Google R.W. Bray speech in Austin, Texas. I mean, this is a powerful speech. He's my guest today. I'm delighted to have him as a guest today. I'm absolutely delighted. It's inspiring. It was on point. It's historical. When you think about the guy that was shooting up folks, he shot a man. He Facebook Live a murder, a Black man. I think he's 37 years old. Driving home today, I also heard about a man that went on a shooting spree in Fresno, California. So, after 60 years of voting Democrat, where is Black America? We have Black men Facebook Living murders. We have Black men going on a shooting spree, despite 60 years of voting Democrat. I think the data says that 1.5 million Black men are missing from society today due to early deaths and incarceration. This is after 60 years of voting Democrat. 1.5 million Black men are missing today. 73%, I think that stat is accurate, 73% of Black women are single mothers. There's no man in the household. This is after 60 years of voting Democrat. So I'm asking my listeners, where are we today? Despite this data, despite this evidence, you still have folks, what was it, 94% of Black Americans, Black voters, Black electorates voted Democrat despite the data, despite the evidence. What does that say about us? What does it say about us? It says that we can't connect the dots. Why can't we connect the dots? Why can't we connect the dots? What are we afraid of? Why do you think we need change in the Black community? When 1.5 million of our men are missing due to early deaths and incarceration, does something need to change? When you have a Black man Facebook living a murder, and he says he's going to go, he said, he eventually turned the gun on himself and committed suicide. We could all see that. That was foreseeable. We all knew that was coming, right? But initially what he said was that he was going on a shooting spree, that he had already shot 13 people, innocent people, people that had nothing to do with his life. People that had no direct impact on his life. But he felt this need, this desire to go on a shooting spree. Then the guy in Fresno, I don't know what his issue was. I haven't looked into it. But I think he was saying he had some kind of thing about he wants to kill white folks because something to do with Trump and if you don't give us reparations and white supremacy. I mean, we have been talking about white supremacy / racism for 100 years at least, no? Have we not? Our community, our black intellectuals, our black talking heads have been talking about it for at least 60 years. Is this correct? So the issue is, why aren't we being sophisticated about politics? That's the issue. Why are we not being sophisticated about politics? I don't know. Why do we not connect the dots? You know, what I think is, even if, like I said, 94% of black folks, black electorates black voters vote Democrat in 2016. Hillary Clinton, a book on Hillary Clinton's campaign just came out called Shattered. The book is called Shattered. And one of the quotes in the book was that Hillary said, you know, this book discusses how her campaign was in disarray and was shattered, was in shambles. And one of the quotes in the book from Hillary was that she said, I have no idea what's going on. I can't wrap my arms around the American people. So one of the things that we were told about Hillary was that she has all this experience. She has all this experience. And yet, with all that experience, she can't wrap her arms around what's going on in America. She's perplexed. She's perplexed. See, this is what's strange to me. And this is what, you know, why were so many people, so many blacks, convinced that the Democratic way is still the way to go despite 60 years of voting Democrat? I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, we're waiting for my guest, R.W. Bray, to call in. What time is it? I told him to call in. He hasn't called in yet. I'm going to keep talking until he calls in. Are you listening? I can't tell if anyone's listening out there, which is weird. I mentioned that before. I said when I'm doing this podcast, I cannot tell if anyone's listening. No one's in the chat room. Let me check on my Facebook page. Give me a second. Let me bring up my Facebook page to see. Maybe someone can tell me on my Facebook page if they're listening. I don't know. Hold on a second. We're waiting for R.W. Bray to call in. He's my guest today. You can check out his speech that he delivered in Austin, Texas last year in August during the presidential campaign at a Trump rally. It's a phenomenal speech. It's a powerful speech. It's an extraordinary speech. He's accurate in terms of the history. That's why I wanted to have him as a guest today on the show. Let me see. I'm looking at my Facebook page. I don't see anyone listening. I don't know where R.W. Bray is. I'm thinking, I'm going to keep talking, but I'm thinking I'm going to try to give him a call, or I'm going to try to email him to find out. See, this is why you need an assistant, right? I'm going to email him to see what's going on because he's my guest and we all want to hear from him. So I'm going to try to email R.W. Bray. I wish that I could play parts of the speech. Maybe I can. I think I'm going to bring up the speech now and play parts of it so you guys can hear it. Okay? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that? I'll bring up the speech where I can play an excerpt of the speech while I'm looking for, while I'm calling him to see if he's going to call in. I'm going to bring up parts of the speech so that you guys can listen to it. It's a phenomenal speech. I know you're going to love it. Hold on one second. I'm just trying to locate the speech. Give me a second here. Hold on. I'm bringing up the speech, and I'm going to play parts of the speech. I should have had that organized, but I was anticipating that he would call in immediately, but that's okay too, right? I'm going to bring up the speech so you can hear it. Be patient with me. I appreciate it. Be patient with me. Thank you. Wait. Oh, no, we don't want to hear this. This is why you need an assistant, no? I'm thinking maybe you can, hold on. Oh, I think someone's calling. Hold on a second. Oh, yeah. Hi, RW. I'm on the show now. Oh, okay. Hold. 323 522 522 5899. Yeah, thanks for calling. Wait, I'm going to double check before you. Yeah, I'm on live now. See, this is why you need an assistant. They hear me. I'm on live now. They hear me talking to you, and I'm look. Okay, is that the right number? Okay. Yeah. 323 522 5899. 323. Okay, thank you. So, everyone, I'm hanging up. Hey, listen, folks. You see, I got a phone call from R.W. Bray. I was going to put his speech on, but he just called in. He didn't have the right number, but I gave him the right number. So, I think I gave him the right number. Yeah, there he is now. Isn't that great? Hi, R.W. Hi, R.W. Can you hear me?
Can we Facebook Live?
Hi, R.W. I'm on now.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, you're on live.
That's good. That's good. I'm sorry that it took so long for us to connect, but Texas has its ways. We do everything big and late.
You do it big and late. That's okay. I'm glad to have you. I was just talking about how delighted I am to have you as a guest on the show. I was having my listener. I was getting ready to play your speech, but I couldn't get it together. But that's okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna link it in the box so people can hear the speech. But I was just talking about how powerful and extraordinary and impassioned that speech was that you delivered last August in Austin at one of the Trump rallies. Tell me, what inspired you? Where did you find those words? What inspired you to make that speech?
Wow. I think mostly it was probably a long overdue, Kathleen. One of those situations where I had been traveling the state for quite some time talking about entrepreneurship, financial and economic independence, agitation, political agitation. And so one of the Trump leaders of the state visited a workshop that I was at, and he pulled me to the side, really, and he was like, "Bray, I've known you for quite some time. It seems as if your career is blowing up. Will you please allow me the opportunity to put you before the nation?" And I humbly accepted, and I tell you, that speech changed the trajectory of my life.
Oh, really? How so? Tell me how.
Well, I knew that some of what I spoke about would resonate in the hearts of Americans, but what I really didn't anticipate was that it would resonate throughout the world. I mean, I started getting calls from Canada and Australia and Europe. And it was then I realized that there was a movement abreast, that there were people who were unsettled with the current state of our society. And so I think globally people were moved, and that is why I say my life definitely changed.
Well, one of the things that you said in the speech is that, and I think this is significant. You said that. Let me see. I actually wrote it down. You said that you are here to remind people who we are, who the Republican Party is. Tell people explain to people how folks have forgotten who the Republican Party is, and explain to people who the Republican Party is.
Woo, Kathleen.
What? Is that too heavy?
now I know why you have your own show.
What do you mean?
You ask loaded questions, and that's good. I think that you're not afraid just to educate the audience. Here's where we're from, right? We birthed from people who were enslaved, and thank God for the individuals who wanted to see us free. And if it wasn't for people like William Lord Garrison and John Brown, these abolitionists became the future fathers of the Republican Party. If it wasn't for people like Booker T. Washington and Frederick Douglass, we wouldn't be where we are now. And what's sad is that we don't learn about the significance of these men. George Washington Carver. Yeah, we know that we wouldn't be peanuts if it wasn't for George Washington Carver. We wouldn't have peanut butter. But he created more than just peanut butter, and so we start educating our community on really the history of black men, black women, Latino men and women, minorities alike, who have become anchors of our community, all derived from ancestrally African American Republicans. And anyone that looks at the timeline and history, they'll know that the Democrat Party has never been a party that anchored the beliefs and the ideologies of individuality. They frown upon anyone who talks about stepping out on faith, because faith is not a part of their platform, right? And we saw that blatantly just a couple of years ago when the DNC decided they didn't even want God in their laws. And so, this is one of those things where you start putting two and two together, and I wish that I could just take everyone to school, when it comes to the Democrat Party and the history of the Republican Party. But I know right here in Texas, we started with 140 black men, and only 20 white men were part of the Republican Party. And that's because for us, Reconstruction wasn't an idea. It was a necessity. And today we need to start a new rebirth of the Reconstruction. Not enough was done. Even W.E. Du Bois said not enough was done in the Reconstruction. So time has given us exactly what we need right now, because I believe that we're on the birth of Reconstruction.
Right. In fact, you said you would like to bring a second Reconstruction to Texas. Yes.
Amen. I would. And here's what I believe, Kathleen. I believe it's 5 eyes. Number one, I believe it starts with economics. We have to start realizing that a lot of the faults in the minority community comes from a lack of understanding of economics. Secondly, I believe it's past time we start talking about entrepreneurship and what it can do to free us as a society, and graduate our mindset from getting a job to creating them. I think that we need to look at enterprise also as well. And enterprise is creating projects, creating initiatives that change our own areas. I think it's long overdue that we pay attention to our environment and we start having conversations about community commerce, about enterprise zones, and keeping these things in sight, because these things have changed several cities across our nation. And lastly, education. I think that it's time for us to redefine education. And we can go into a litany of reasons why, but we have to start defending education as well. And so I work off those 5 E's, Kathleen, and I'm grateful for people like you, because you guys offer up me a platform to get it out there and remind people what republicanism really is.
Yeah, we need a platform. Black America needs a platform. The black community needs a platform. We need a platform in the media. I'm trying to do it. Others are trying to do it. We've got to make this happen. This is the new media. We've got to make it happen. It's a necessity. Why? Because 1.3 million black men are missing from society today. That's why. So one of the things you said about one of the things you said about the Democratic Party was that they tell black folks that the government can raise you. This is what you said in your speech, and I remember. I wrote it down actually. You said that the Democratic Party lets black people believe that the government can raise them from the cradle to the grave. Speak on that.
All right, so in underserved areas, we have a lot of single mothers who happen to be teenagers. These teenagers become really a product of just a generational miseducation and misunderstandings. What was once a transitional program has become a stabilizing program for many people in the underserved areas. And so you end up with a single unwedded teenager mother who goes out and she has to basically take care of her child. In order to do that, she relies on the government to do it. So she goes out and she gets Medicaid. And Medicaid will take care of this child until they reach a certain age, right? And so up to 18 or 19 years old, sometimes 24, that kid decides to go to college. The parents receive monies from the government off the backs of other individuals' labor for years. You think about that. For years, this person is receiving aid. And they receive this aid until they're of age. And then what happens? Now we have Obamacare, where it used to be an individual would have to start providing health care for themselves through employment, through finding other avenues to be able to afford health care, maybe starting their own business and employing their own selves with health care. But now the government will take care of health care. Then when you get 60, you have the right, 65 now, you have the right to start receiving your Social Security, right? Once again, now we know Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, but at the end of the day, the government says, we thank you for your service. We'll give you $1,000 a month to live off of. And so what you have now is individual that works off a fixed income of $1,000 plus whatever he can make at Walmart by greeting people at the door. And all of a sudden, the government promises to take care of you through your geriatric age and until you die. And you'll receive this grant until you are 6 feet under. So in effect, what happens is from the time a person was born to the time they died, the government, this golden calf, is taking care of them. And that's the lie.
And that's a lie because a lot of people don't realize that during Jim Crow, black folks, black communities had just as many businesses, or just had the same business, not just as many because there are more white people, but had the same businesses that white folks had. We had the same businesses. Correct. We had banks. We had insurance companies. We had funeral homes.
That's right.
Exactly. And then after Jim Crow, after integration, after civil rights, what has happened? What is that? Where are the businesses? Where are the black businesses?
No, totally. The New Deal really was no deal at all. And really what the New Deal created was a safety net that eventually became an abyss. It was there to actually save those individuals who had fallen, prevent them from hitting rock bottom. And what it did was people started camping out and using it as a hammock. That wasn't what it was meant for. It was meant for you to bounce out of, not to lie in. And because we never really ventured away from it, we never really stepped in and taught or reminded our people of our past, we lost our past. It's just now that history is poking its head out again. And you hear people talking about the return of Black Wall Street. You hear people talking about Oklahoma. It's just now that those truths are being talked about. And the reason why is because we've seen the progression of these years under Democrat rule, and we see that it has given us no return. So now, all of a sudden, you see these millennials I have a new assistant. It's funny that you mentioned I need an assistant. I have a new assistant. She's here with me now. And her and I, we share some of the same principles, some of the same values. The idea that millennials don't care about life is a lie. The idea that millennials all want to live off the government is a lie. Any idea that says that millennials are anything less than entrepreneurs, economic dreamers, individuals looking for economic independence and freedom, those individuals are a lie. And so it's amazing to see where we're at right now, Kathleen. And I got to tell you, if anyone's listening and they have the means to bring your show to another level, then they should invest. They should support you, because it used to be where African Americans and other minorities, both Latinos and Asians alike, would team together and they would form coalitions. And there are coalitions forming right now. The alt left is igniting a millennial base to challenge the right. And we need to have an answer. And if we don't, we'll lose an entire generation.
Well, we've already lost several generations, wouldn't you say? We've lost several generations of black folks. Because look at this man. I was just talking about this before you came on. I was talking about the man that Facebook Live, the black man, 37 years old, that Facebook Lived a murder of an older black man. You mentioned in your speech how many black men are in prison, are incarcerated. We all know.
Yes.
We all know what's going on in Chicago. The black death, the homicide rate there, black on black crime. Hey, the Democrats don't even allow us to talk about black on black crime.
Right.
They act as if the truth doesn't matter. The truth matters. We must always speak the truth. I don't care how ugly it is. We must always speak the truth. And the Democrats have disallowed black folks, black liberals, black Democrats, because I hear the talking heads on television. They have disallowed black liberals, even black Republicans, from speaking the truth. If anyone precludes you from speaking the truth, there's a problem. I always say, Houston, we have a problem. Because the truth is undeniable.
Yes.
Okay, one of the things, I listened to your speech over and over and over, and I wrote down a few of the things that you said because I thought they were so profound. They're not things I say. I love when somebody says profound things, you know what I mean? I kind of steal them, I remember them. So one of the things that you said is that President Johnson thought that black folks would sell their birthright for a bowl of soup. Elaborate on that.
Yeah, so many people believe that President Johnson was next to Jesus Christ because he advocated, the 64 Act. But we forget that it wasn't him that really pushed the 64 Act. It was Eric Dirksen, a Republican senator that he went to. Matter of fact, that same year, Time magazine did an article on this guy, Senator Eric Dirksen, and basically called him the champion of the 1964 Act. The reason why the Johnson even advocated for the 1964 Act that gave African Americans so many opportunities that we have now is because he knew he needed to win. And he surrounded himself with people like, Margaret Sanger, and he surrounded himself with some of the alt liberals of that time, and those individuals all told him that he needed to give the minority community something, specifically that he needed to pander and give something to the black community. And so he leans back in his chair after they've devised this plan, and he basically tells a room full of Democrats, he says, I'm going to have these Negroes, and he didn't say Negroes, I'm going to have these Negroes voting Democrats for 200 years. The fact that this is on record, and African Americans continue to vote Democrat, makes them what Malcolm X called them, chumps, political chumps. That you would fall into the fox's den and allow yourself to actually be bamboozled by individuals who basically canvassed and carved out a plan to basically enslave you is asinine. There's no way a president who sits in his chair and says, I'm going to have Negroes voting Democrat for 200 years just by passing his act. That means that basically that person never intended to anyway. And people forget that before he was president, he was a senator. And he had passed up 3 civil rights acts before that, shot it down. That tells you where his heart was. And that's the only reason why Republicans were against him passing the law in the first place, because they knew that it was a ruse. But let someone else tell you, and he's the next best thing to Jesus Christ.
Right. So talk to me, what is this? What is the birthright of black folks? Tell my listeners, what is our birthright?
Well, for me, what it means is that, and I'm sort of an advocate for Malcolm X. He believed that the African American community, and any community there too, could raise themselves up solely by a system called community commerce. He believed that if we did that, then other individuals who once saw us as a minority would see us as equals, because the most commonality, the most common thing, the most common equalizer amongst the world is money. He knew that if blacks supported their communities, that it would create a system where other ethnic groups would want to participate in, because it was profitable, because it was value added. An example would be that right now we have African Americans who live in some of the most deprived areas of their cities. When they choose to dine for the night, or take a family outing, or even eat well, they'll cross the interstate to go to an area that looks better dressed. That's where you'll find Applebee's, and that's where you'll find Starbucks, and that's where you'll find the latest, greatest restaurants and upscale, urban, chic restaurants with healthy food. You won't find that in the hood. And there's no reason to build it in the hood, because African Americans are crossing the interstate to go there anyway. Well, the dollars, the black dollar, or the minority dollars for that matter, that exist between African Americans and Latinos, those dollars are going toward areas that are already filled with enterprise and opportunity. And there's no reason for any of those businesses to create anything in the hood. None. Because they're already crossing the interstate to come to them anyway. But what happens if those individuals committed to their own communities? Then Applebee's and some of the great restaurants and Starbucks will see the need to go into the hood, because they will be losing what? The dollar. The most racist thing I've ever come across is the dollar. The dollar only works with green, and that's it. And if you don't have it, it passes you up. But it also is a great equalizer, because regardless of your color, if you have money, I want to do business with you, regardless. Unfortunately, we have not taught that in our communities. So our community spends trillions of black dollars across the interstate, when we need to keep those trillions of black dollars in our community through community commerce. Now, I know I don't have a lot of time, and it's not me teaching anyone anything. I'm just reminding people of something. We do have something called enterprise zones, where our council members who work on a municipal level can actually create an enterprise zone in their cities. And so from a public level, from a civic level, we can influence some of these deprived areas by simply saying, listen, the monies that are collected in this zone will go to this zone. And then they use that money to beautify that area. And then companies will want to move in, because you eliminated crime, you eliminated garbage, and all of a sudden these areas have new spotlights, new street lights, and people want and more greenery, right? They've gone green. More businesses want to take a chance in that area. Well, what will that do? It would drive economics. It would drive people to that area. They do this all the time throughout growing cities, especially in areas of regentrification, which is another story.
Yeah, that's what I was going to talk about, is that I think a lot of the urban areas are being gentrified now. They're pushing black folks, at least in Los Angeles, and I know you originally come from St.
New Orleans.
Yeah, New Orleans. You live in Houston. I don't know what's going on over there, but I know in Los Angeles, the urban area, the city, the urban city is being gentrified right now. Black folks can't afford these homes, and where we were raised, the middle class neighborhoods, they can't afford these homes. So I,
Well,
there's another thing that Dr. Claude Anderson talks about. There is no longer a black community. We have neighborhoods because we don't have any businesses. I mean, where are the black communities? I thought we're being pushed out of them by
this is amazing.
illegal immigration.
Yeah, and miseducation, right?
Yeah.
Lauren Hill said it best. So you're hitting on all cylinders right now, Kathleen. So let me just address one thing: regentrification. Big Mama bought into the idea that she could take advantage of tax deferrals. So many big cities said, "Hey, you're too old because you're on a fixed income. You shouldn't have to be worried about taking care of taxes. So what we'll do is we'll put you on a tax deferral system." And she says, "Oh, thank you for being so gracious," right? And she tells this to the city, and she takes advantage of what the county or the city has given her, these tax deferrals. But a tax deferral means just that. It's deferred. It's not gone. So when Big Mama passes away, she thinks that she's passing on a legacy to her children. In actuality, Big Mama is passing on a debt to the tune of $14,000, $20,000, $25,000, of which her inheritors cannot even afford to settle. And the next thing you know, the tax collectors are sending suits to all of her children, including her grandchildren, for anyone who's interested in saving this property. But none of them can do it because their income level won't allow for them to pay out $30,000 to save this would-be legacy from her black mother. So now what happens? Officially, any individual who wants to buy that property down at the courthouse will be able to do it. Not because Big Mama didn't want to pass on a legacy, but Big Mama was miseducated. And because she was miseducated, we lost out on black wealth. And we're losing out on brown wealth as well. So here is the biggest issue that we have. The biggest issue that we have is miseducation. And this miseducation is happening across the nation, where families are losing black legacy because no one dared to teach them the importance of taxes and property taxes specifically. And so you have these individuals, big businesses, going into these areas, buying up property down at the city courthouse that once would have gone to an African-American inheritor, but now is lost forever, Kathleen. Not because of racism, but because of miseducation of economics. Whose fault is that? Is that the white man's fault? Not really. He's only doing what he's been taught to do, acquire wealth. Why don't we do the same?
Well, some folks, I listened to Yvette Carnell's show, and she talks about the data that there is no inheritance for blacks. But I live in Los Angeles, and I see what has happened to black neighborhoods, how those families, how those homes, because there are several black neighborhoods in Los Angeles, Compton, Watts, Baldwin Hills, Leimert Park, Windsor Hills, Lafayette Square. And I know I've heard stories, these are anecdotes, I've heard stories of the children or grandchildren losing that property because of a lack of financial literacy. So I know that's happening in Los Angeles. I can't speak about all of the United States, but I know in Los Angeles, kids are losing their parents' homes because of a lack of financial literacy. They either are not keeping up with the taxes, or they sold it when they should have held on to it, or they refinanced it and then sold it, things like that. But what it comes down to is that, and then the other thing I wanted to say is that the argument can be made that, yes, it is racism because of the school systems in the urban areas do not teach intentionally financial literacy to black students. Do you see what I'm saying? Some would argue that is racism because blacks should be learning in school the importance of financial literacy.
It's amazing to hear you. You're very fine on all cylinders right now. I hope this show grows. I really do. Here's a Here's a truth.
You're gonna help me grow the show because I'm gonna have you on as a frequent guest. You know.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Here's a truth, right? The Democrat Party believes in corralling minorities. Period. End of story. There used to be a time when people advocated against no taxation without representation, but nowadays that's just not the case. The person that's being double taxed the most is homeowners these days. You have areas where there's a failing public school, right? And you mentioned schools. There's a failing public school, and the truth is that liberal arts never was created to teach individuals financial literacy. Never. It was never in the curriculum. The idea of savings and monies, those things were always taught in private schools and charter schools. Always. And the reason being is because education used to be very holistic and very intentional. But in the 70s, education became very streaming. And ultimately, if you look at history, it's because we started to imitate China. But the crazy thing is, though, is that now what we see is that there's been a divide in education where government has decided that if you live outside of a area, you will be breaking the law if you believe that your child deserved a better education and you decided to maybe cheat or lie on the form and you use your auntie's address or your grandmother's address so that your kid can go to a better school. Well, if that school found out, you know what happened? They would bus your child back to the area that they want that child to go to based on the address that you really have. And then it could basically criminalize the mother for even doing what she did to get her kid a better education.
Yeah, there was a black woman who was incarcerated for trying to get a better education for her kid. I saw that. Yeah,
this is truth. This is an ongoing truth. They're criminalizing black mothers, criminalizing Latino mothers, because they're lying on applications so their children will go to a different area where the education was better. The last time I looked, that's what they did to cattle. They corral minorities. They prevent them from going outside of this corral. Because if they get outside of this corral, then they would have an opportunity to do better in school. And then, on top of that, they demonize charter schools and they demonize homeschooling. If anyone ever really wanted to ask the question, why are we advocating against charter schools and academies? It's because people like the NAACP have declared a national moratorium against it. That doesn't make any sense. Why would the NAACP be against charter schools and academies when 75%, in some cases 79% of African Americans across the nation have said that they believe in parent school choice? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
the number one defender of our beliefs has now circumvented everything that we believed in. The reason why they want to corral minorities is because you can't have all these highly educated minorities walking the earth. There's no way in hell. You have highly educated minorities talking about, I deserve better. Then all of a sudden you start seeing an economic boom we haven't seen since they burned down Oklahoma.
Oh, really? Well, this is what this guy, today a guy in Fresno, he killed several people, and he was talking about, he was anti-Trump, and he was talking about the fact that black folks should get reparations, or, he was off on some confused way of thinking. Did you hear about that? He killed several people. Did you just hear that?
Yes, I know. It's tragic.
So he's confused because he's thinking that the government, that Trump is somehow responsible for. Oh, this is the point I'm trying to make. Is that I think a lot of the black talking heads and the black Democrats go into this corralling business because they trigger a lot of black men to believe that it is white supremacy / racism that is precluding for closing any opportunity to Black America. This is what this is how they're corralling us as Black folks. They're saying that racism is foreclosing Black folks for any opportunity, and that is best represented by who? The figurehead of that foreclosure is Trump. And in fact, Maxine Waters, she said she's going to spend the rest of her days trying to get Trump impeached. She's right here in California, Maxine Waters, down the street, a few miles from where I live.
Let me shed some light on anyone who's really listening, right? If you're in California right now, if you really look at the areas that are being regentrified, right? The people that are moving into those areas, you ever know that many of those areas are extremely artsy? You ever notice that?
Uh-huh.
Like they're filled with lesbians. They're filled with artists. They're filled with young professionals, right?
Right.
Filled with them. It's not old white people buying those areas and moving into these regentrified areas. They're settled. They have their homes in their gated communities that are far from the urban areas. No, it's young lesbians, young actors that are moving into these areas. If you notice that, now, tell me, are lesbians Republicans?
No, they're liberals. They're Democrats.
That's right. If people really look at what's happening to these regentrification areas, they will find that their areas are being bought out by the alt-left. A lot of these areas, I know right here in Houston, there was an area that used to be called Montrose. And part of the Montrose area was part of an area that was highly populated with African Americans. You can't find them now. And our particular area, this Montrose area, has become a area where basically homosexual families are able to get away from certain things that are happening across the city, and it's become a hub. Honestly, even the bars are specifically designed for that lifestyle. Now, I'm not on air speaking against that lifestyle. I'm only bringing out the truth, right? The truth is that these areas are being bought out by those individuals. When you look at the majority of homosexuals in America, many of them, are they a part of the Republican Party?
No, the majority are liberal. It's a phony deal. It's a phony deal.
Exactly.
It's a phony deal.
Exactly. So
if you examine it closely, it's a phony deal.
If you examine it closely, you will see that the people that they are hating are white liberals, not white Republicans. The white liberals have taken them for a ruse. They've taken them for a show. Malcolm X called white liberals foxes. He called them foxes. They're smiling, but they are dangerous. Here's an example. The DNC had the opportunity to finally elect a black leader. There's only been one black leader in the Democrat Party, in the DNC nationally, and that person basically was appointed. But they had the opportunity recently to hire and elect a black leader. What did they do? They shot him down. There's no way in heck. Matter of fact, even Obama, they had Obama making calls, robocalls against electing this man. Obama on robocalls, a black ex-president making calls against another black man running for the DNC.
You're talking about Keith Ellison.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Keith should have won. He should have won, but he didn't. He didn't win because he was black.
Oh, I don't know.
There's no way.
No, I don't know if he didn't
There's
win.
No way.
Because they had Donna Brazile before. She had led the DNC at one point. I don't know if he didn't win because he was black. I think he didn't win because he was too left, too progressive, too liberal, and a Muslim. If he was a corporatist black like Donna Brazile, he would have won. So don't you
think it's funny, Kathleen? I don't mean to stop you. Don't you think it's funny that the party who says that they have the biggest umbrella would vote against a man who is a Muslim?
Right, that's because they're phony. Because the Democratic Party, the Democratic Party is run by Zionists, and they don't want a Muslim.
No, they don't want a Muslim.
Right.
But when you see them on TV, they're the biggest advocates for Muslims.
Only No, they're the advocate for Muslims with regards to the travel ban, which they call the Muslim ban. But when it comes to
Right,
Israel and
exactly.
when it comes to Israel and Palestine, they're for Israel. See, this is this is why we
Except for Soros, except for Ford and Soros, who actually they hate Israel.
Oh, he does?
Oh yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
Ford
that.
and Soros, yeah, they hate Israel.
Oh, well, I didn't know that, but I don't want to get into that talk. That's for another show. But but what I wanted to say is that they were getting back to the DNC. The DNC replaced they replaced him with another minority. Tom Perez is Latino, so it's not like
Yeah, but the black Democrats need, and some of them they're leaving the party, but I think that woke them up to the reality. It really did. I mean, you got 94%, 95%, depending on what statistics you're looking at, that says that African Americans are voting Democrat 94, 95% of the time. If you have an ethnic community that votes Democrat, that is that faithful to the party, and you can't elect a DNC leader that's black, I think that speaks volumes for who you are truly for.
Oh yeah, a lot of things speak volumes.
African Americans wake up. You're one of them, right? You're one of the people who woke up from the lie.
Oh yeah, because it's like 8 years of Obama. You know, like I said, I had my radio show for 4 years at KCAA, and I was doing traditional politics. And so I was examining politics closely. And so after 8 years, not even 8 years, because I voted for Obama the first term, but I didn't vote for him the second time, because after 4 years, it's like, oh, wait a minute. This is not right. This is not happening. Because politics is quid pro quo. We vote 94% Democrat, and we get nothing in return. So I'm done with that party. That's why I woke
Amen,
up.
sister.
You used to be Democrat. You used to vote Democrat too, no?
That's correct.
No, what I read, what woke you up is when was Katrina. Tell my listeners.
Katrina.
Yeah, you're from New Orleans. St. Charles. Tell my listeners, Lake Charles. It's Lake Charles. Tell my listeners what you realized, what you found out with Katrina. This will be interesting.
Yeah, so I lived in New Orleans at the time of the storm. I've been a guardsman, an Air Force guardsman for over nearly 16 years now. And when Katrina hit, I had just bought a property right by the water. I'm in my 20s, early 20s. I'm thinking I'm living the life. I wasn't in my home 20 days and the storm came. I left New Orleans thinking I'll be back in a day or two. I was back, but I was back to destruction. I lost everything in Katrina. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to mourn over my loss. In the Guard, I had to immediately start on search and rescue. So I did search and rescue for a month. I did ICU and ER for 3 months after that. But what's interesting is that we would have days where we would fly and look for life, basically. It was an interesting flight because we were on the Black Hawk. So we could see very, very clearly what was going on the ground. I traveled around the east side of New Orleans quite a bit to look for any life at all. We had circled around once, and I happened to notice that the pilot was crying. And I looked out, and I realized that he was crying because it was devastation upon devastation. We swung around to an area of New Orleans called the Riverwalk, and that's when my heart dropped, because I looked down, and there was people in America with their hands up, begging for food and water in America. And let me tell you, the people that were down there, they looked like you and I. They looked like the same minorities every day that I fight for, that I advocate for us to wake up. Those are the ones that I saw down begging for water and food. And I knew then, when we finally landed at the base, that the government cannot take care of you. They cannot. The capacity of what happens, or the capacity of what happened, it branded me for life. And I started reading this incredible book that I found in a rubbish of a home in Katrina called Booker T. Washington, Up from Slavery. And that was the day my life changed. And after that, I started studying out men like Booker T. Washington. Frederick Douglass, scripts like Self-Made Man that really turned me on to creating something and living a life of passion and purpose.
Living a life of passion and purpose. And another thing that these black intellectuals, Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, one of the things that they said since the 1800s, they were against illegal immigration. They were against immigration until every black man is employed. That's something that we aren't aware of. The Democrat Party is pushing illegal immigration. And immigration, legal or not, impacts the labor force. This is what this is what I keep harping on this radio show. Because if I can get one black American to understand this, and when you talk about our birthright, I'm thinking our birthright is the fact that we are descendants of slaves. That's our birthright. And our 14th Amendment applies to us. The citizenship clause is our birthright of the 14th Amendment. It was written for the descendants of slaves. And if I can get one thing through to one black person, I feel like my show is worth it. If I can get through that illegal immigration, legal or not, impacts the labor force. And there's an article in the Los Angeles Times, Google it please, that talks about the details, that analyzes that black folks are facing a job crisis in Los Angeles, the mecca of illegal immigration. It's connected. I need us to understand this kind of connection. For some reason, it eludes us. It eludes us. We go along with anything the Democrats say, even if it is to our own demise, even if it's to our own suffering. We go along with it. Tell us, RW, how will blacks, what will black folks experience under a Trump administration? I don't know if that's a good way to put it. How should I talk to me about blacks and the Trump administration? Talk to me about that.
Blacks and the Trump administration. I would say that any minority, but especially African Americans, this is a gold rush for us. It's hard for people to understand this. It's hard for us. And there's so many avenues of this conversation, and I do hope that we'll be able to talk about this on a later show. But for the Trump administration, what it does is that it allows African Americans to step out on faith and do something they haven't done before. The areas of construction, the areas of IT, the areas of consultation, the areas of pipe fitting, of the oil industry, all those different industries will boom under this administration. When it comes to entrepreneurship and business growth, this is the perfect way for you to get in because red tape will be cut, and all the paperwork to start things that you have the power to start that's being prevented by the government because the system is created that we can't go through all the tapes in order to get past the red. And so now that that's fallen down, now that that's coming down, here's an opportunity for African Americans to step out on faith, Latinos to step out on faith, and create their own companies and ultimately create their own futures.
Wait, listen, you don't have to talk about Latinos unless you're reaching out to them. I don't know why, but they're in Los Angeles. They're doing quite well. They're surpassing black folks. I want to focus on Black America. I mean, are you reaching out to both groups? I mean, I don't know.
Well, my premier focus is Black Americans, but the reason why I loop these two authorities, what I call authorities, together is because at the end of the day, the Black and Brown has to come to an understanding and a coalition. If not, then what will happen is we will miss out on the biggest opportunity to create a synergy of unity that has yet to even hit America.
Oh, well, I don't know about that. But
yeah. I mean, you think about this for a minute. What is the what is the current population of Americans percentage-wise that are black? Do you know?
I think 13%.
That's right. Just about 13%, depending on what stat you're looking at, right?
Right.
So when you think about African Americans only making up 13% of our nation, yet we control who's elected, depending on who we vote. We control votes. I mean, think about it. 5% of our vote changes an entire election. In 20 years, you know who's projected to have that power? You think it's us?
No, I know we're not, but the issue is
Right.
there are 30 to 40 million illegal immigrants.
And that's our fight. Our real fight is not against the Latino community. The real fight is against the illegal Latino community. And the only way for us to fight fair in that is for us to educate individuals who are truly Americans, to get them to see that, listen, this is ill affecting the black community. And in order to do that, we have to make sure that we ignite nationalism within the brown community for those who truly are Americans.
No,
It's a piss in the face.
Right,
It's a piss in the face for us to ignore nationalism. That's the problem.
I'm listening.
Go ahead.
Because I think that most Mexican Americans or Latino Americans go for illegal immigration. They want illegal immigration because they want, I just heard the guy say it, because they're going to take over Texas, California, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, New Jersey, and Florida.
That's the alt-left. You know, there are individuals right now in those same states that are quiet. Just the same way we were quiet. There are actual legal Latinos who don't want this to happen because they ran from it in the first place, or their ancestors did. They saw what was happening below the border, and these individuals don't want to see that happen to us. Think about Ted Cruz's father, right? Ted Cruz's father ran from oppression. Now we're looking at Ted Cruz, and this guy had the audacity to run for president. He got the audacity from the bravery of his father doing it the right way. What we have to advocate is do things the right way, and you'll be supported. And the problem is that people don't understand that they are actually lessening the labor force by allowing individuals who don't do it the right way. Not only that, but we're not even advocating the integrity of the system. Plus, we're pissing in the face of every veteran that goes and serves his country or loses his life, but goes and serves his country to get nationalized. That's the worth of our nationalism. You cross the border, you swim over, and you're automatically an American. If the rhetoric isn't preached and taught in both communities, then what we will see is an abandonment of education. The black community right now needs to wake up to the simple fact that if they don't start fighting against illegal immigration, they will find their fathers and their husbands and their sons out of jobs for those who are depending on the labor force to make money. But for those who are entrepreneurs and for those who are kingmakers, for those who are devoted to enterprise, I advocate that we start thinking about enterprise.
Enterprise with illegal immigrants?
Negative.
Right.
Enterprise is supporting our own people.
Right.
See, if African Americans own their own corporations, then we dictate who we hire. Here's an example. My grandmother, she used to say, stop putting out the milk. Stop putting out the milk. And she would tell me that because I used to love seeing cats come over, little kittens. But when I stopped putting out the milk, you know what happens? They didn't come anymore. We keep putting out the milk. If we had more individuals becoming entrepreneurs and dedicated to hiring just Americans, you think anybody would be rushing over here to find a job? Mm-hmm. If everyone over here was committed to hiring Americans?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, they wouldn't. But if African Americans are going to commit to just being laborers and still commit at the same time to the Democrat Party, then they are basically aiding to their own demise.
I agree.
I'm not advocating that African Americans continue to become the blunt of our labor force. I'm advocating that we become attorneys, lawyers, businessmen, investors, venture capitalists, enterprisers, so that we call the shots and we transform our own community.
Oh, I'm totally on board with that. In fact, Trump just signed an executive order today in Wisconsin. Buy America, hire America. We are Americans. We are black Americans. And I believe that this guy that went out and shot these folks in Fresno, he doesn't understand that he's an American. He thinks he's still separate from America. And his birthright citizenship was passed down to him via the 14th Amendment. He's a descendant of slaves. The Civil War was fought for his freedom by white men. He doesn't understand this, and that's why he can't think straight, and he goes out shooting people. See, the left has convinced, this is what I think, the left has convinced black folks that they are alienated from America, when we are more American than most people who immigrated at the turn of the century. We've been here longer, 400 years. We built America. We built the South. We built the banks with our ancestors' free labor for 150 years or longer. But we don't know that. We haven't been educated.
Well, I'm hoping that when you have me back on, we'll be able to venture off in that because, gosh, you are opening up Pandora's box.
Okay, well, we've been on long enough, and I'm gonna have you back on. And the next time I have you back on, I think that we'll do. Hopefully I'll be on YouTube Live. I'll be streaming on YouTube Live, and I'll have more listeners. But this show will be downloaded to YouTube, so it will be on YouTube. It'll be on Twitter. It'll be on my Facebook. But RW, I love having you on. You're going to be on again, and it was great listening to you. I hope listeners appreciate the information that you gave them.
No, I mean you're an incredible host. I mean the parting words of all this would be, listen, we must engage. We must have discussions like we're having now. If we don't discuss these things, we are going to start losing more than we ever have before. We have to engage one another on issues that may even cause our hair to stand up on our neck. But on some issues we agree upon, some issues we won't. But what I like about this show, though, is that it allows for us to have the dialogue and discussions necessary to change our situation. So whatever you do, Kathleen, continue to engage the way that you're doing because, sister, you're onto something.
Oh, I really appreciate you saying that. Yes, and this is something you can hear in RW Speech, which I'm going to link to, or you can Google RW Speech in Austin, Texas at the Trump rally. We must engage. We're not engaging being on the Democratic plantation. We're not engaging. We're just sort of like being, we're being attracted to Hillary having hot sauce in her pocketbook or something. We're not engaging. It's a dialectic back, But I appreciate R.W. Bray being my guest. He's my special guest, and I'm going to have you on soon again. Okay.
Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We were just listening to R.W. Bray. We had a very lengthy conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to have him on again soon. I love what he's saying. You'll love his speech. I'm going to link it in the box on YouTube so you can access it. And thank you for listening to the Kathleen Wells Show.